2, 3.
Welcome to all our comrades around the world to the Socialist Sunday Stream.
Welcome everybody to the Socialist Sunday Stream. It's Sunday apparently, so we have to stream, and that's very okay because we have with us tonight, of course, Kathrin is with us tonight. Say hello, Kathrin. And we have a very nice special guest with us tonight because we have only the best of the best. And in this case, it's Aaron from the channel Re-Education. Welcome, Aaron.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So good. Tell us. I don't think anybody here doesn't know about your channel, but give us a shout out anyway. So just in case some lost soul sees this this after the fact. So tell us a little bit.
Sure. Okay, yeah. So I host a YouTube channel on obviously YouTube called Re-Education, and I basically talk about news, politics, radical politics, and organizing and activism and that sort of thing. So it's a lot of fun. Definitely come check it out. Just Google Re-Education or search it on the YouTubes, and you'll probably find me. So yeah, definitely. And check out my Twitter. That's where I do a lot of just nonsense posting.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I love your channel because I feel like there are not enough YouTube channels out there, especially on LeftTube, talking about real life praxis. And you have a lot of content related to that. And I feel like a lot of life experience as well. So I really, really like that.
Yeah, we appreciate you a lot. Definitely. There's a link in the description below to Aaron's channel. So if you want to check it out.
Awesome. I really was interested also to ask you a little bit about, because I know that you've had quite an interesting background in terms of the fact that you used to, correct me if I'm wrong, but be far more right wing, and then you sort of had a transition over to the left. And I was just curious how you came over to the left, and what brought you this way, and how that journey was for you.
You know what? I was very far right. Like some people would probably say that I was fascist. I would definitely say that I was leaning that way, though I don't think I had enough of an understanding of what fascism meant to really call myself one in like a really theoretical way. But I definitely did not like people that had different skin colors than me because I thought that they were, not as good or inferior in some way. I did a lot of bad stuff. And stuff like that when I was a kid, or when I was a young adult and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I actually got into talking to a lot of people that had different ways of thinking, and of course different people that were of different races and that sort of thing, and realizing that we're all human beings and that we all have this shared desire to want to do better for ourselves, and all of these things. It wasn't until I really had a good amount of time to actually talk to these people and actually listen to them before I started to realize that, we can all be equals. We can all be we are all equals. And certain races aren't better than the other and all of this sort of thing. So really, it came from just an amount of education and just talking to people, and I think that that's how a lot of these things happen. It isn't through just watching one debate or hearing one certain argument that changes your mind on everything all of a sudden. It's a gradual process that over time you start to hear different opinions and different viewpoints, and you start to mold yourself and change your views and change who you are. And I think that that's just inherent to human nature because like I've said in the past, we're like a big sack of meat with a bunch of chemical and electrical activity happening inside of our brains, right? It's almost impossible to pinpoint on a graph where you land politically. You might believe one thing about abortion, but something totally different about economics, or something totally different about monetary policy, or whatever it is. You're a complex individual, and you're going to have a lot of different things that change your mind. And that was what changed my mind over time, was just hearing the economic argument and hearing the racial argument and hearing and all of these other arguments, right? And also empathizing with a lot of people and actually trying to feel like I was in the same position as they were. And that goes a long way if you're a human being and you're empathetic at all, because then you can kind of visualize, well, yeah, I wouldn't want this sort of thing to happen to me. And even though I don't have the life experiences that you do, I want to, and I think that I can, at least to a certain extent, understand what other people are saying. So yeah, I think all of those things together is really what moved me from, say, very right-leaning, almost fascist, to being left-wing, and then eventually being just full-on radical socialist, communist, anarchist, because that's just the smartest way to go, I think.
I really liked what you said, because I think that relates to a lot of something that we've often brought up on the stream, but I feel like a lot of us aren't really moved by information and statistics and all of these things alone. And I feel like a lot of people on the left are often trying to get other people to come over to the left by trying to, I don't know, disprove a lot of what they're saying, or, I don't know, hit them with loads of facts about communism or capitalism. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I think that can be really useful, but I also feel like there is so much power in appealing to people on a more emotional and subjective level. And yeah, it seems like that was really what helped you in a lot of ways. And I guess that must really inform a lot of how you talk about praxis these days as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just to jump off of what you were saying a moment ago, it's not just all one way or all the other, right? Some people are going to be very convinced by logical arguments, sound reason, numbers, graphs, charts, and everything, debates, and that sort of thing. Other people are going to be more swayed by emotional arguments. You shouldn't belittle or poo-poo either one of those. We have to, like I said before the show, different strokes for different folks. Some people are going to be convinced by one thing. Some people are going to be convinced by another. And as far as real world praxis goes, yeah, it definitely informs what I've believed, because being all the way on that other side, I feel like a lot of the people that aren't a lost cause, and that they are mostly propagandized to. And that's not just the right. I'm talking about leftist, quote unquote, liberals and that sort of thing. Anybody under the capitalist mindset is inherently under a lot of propaganda. From the moment they're born to the moment they die, they believe every single thing that the state tells them, and all of these things. And if you go against that narrative, you're considered a conspiracy theorist and all of that, right? So it makes me feel as though we are all just people, and we need to be working together as a unified force, right? Unity among all working people, as I like to say, so we can actually fight against the oppressor class and, gain our sovereignty, basically our freedom from this oppressive structure. And I think that we need that, and we need to do it not just with unifying the different factions on the left, but unifying all working people. But we have to do that through massive education, and that's where I think that we have to start right now.
Yeah, all this bickering and stuff, it really gets to my nerves, to be honest. Like, I understand, that everybody's got to defend their own little corner on the left, and their own little, their own set of ideas. But why can't all the leftist sets of ideas be complementary towards achieving the goal, what we want to do, what we want to have, more equitable, more just society where everybody lives in peace, right?
Yeah, and well, the whole problem with leftist discourse and always becoming factionalized, it's inherently exacerbated by the capitalist structure that we have to basically put our opinions forward on. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is. They profit off of engagement. So the more you engage, specifically in drama, the more money you make, the more it vindicates and validates other people. And then those people feeling validated then give you that validation back, through tweets and through likes and that. And it creates this perpetuating cycle where it enforces this cannibalistic behavior within leftist circles. And it's not just us either, right? It's absolutely every circle that does it. But we suffer from it big time because it's inherent to our belief structure that we need to unify and work together to achieve goals. But it's also kind of just like leftists to always find little faults in each other and like bicker and infight, right? So we already have those problems, but it's exacerbated so much more by the profit motive. And not to mention even 5 or 6 people with bad intent, whether it be from a government agency or whether it be from an alt-right troll group or whatever, could easily go in and start sowing division with a few individual people who would then start causing a whole bunch of problems. And like I was saying before, it's a feedback loop. So the audience informs the creator informs the audience, and back and forth until it creates factionalism and it creates divides and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a major problem with division and factionalism and stuff like that on the left. But yeah, sorry, I derailed the conversation because we were going to talk about praxis.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I think it's a built-in feature for us leftists to have like a very well-trained critical thinking, and when we turn our focus on each other instead of the problems, that's also kind of problematic, right?
Oh yeah, I would agree, absolutely. We have to figure out a way to solve the problem that we're all trying to solve, right? And attacking each other, though we are finding certain criticisms that are important and all of that, we're doing more damage to one another, participating in the structure that the social media apparatus works in, when we could just subvert that. And instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to call out Javi, or I'm going to call out Kathrin, or whatever, you talk to that person personally, right? You DM them, you talk to them individually, and you don't try to make a spectacle of it. But again, some people make profit off of making a spectacle of it. So it makes it very difficult, especially if people in the capitalist system that we live have to do that so they can get paid through Patreon or through their supporters or whatever, so they can pay their bills as well, right? Mm-hmm. It's a very complicated structure. It's no good. We need to get rid of it altogether.
Yeah, and this is why I think it's so important as well that we all consider the ways in which we need to do the internal work to dismantle a lot of these competitive, individualistic mindsets, and how capitalism has all indoctrinated ourselves as well. Because I think that a lot of the time we can tend to think that because we know the theory and we know how capitalism works and competition, everything, that we ourselves haven't internalized a lot of these things. So yeah, I definitely think that, as well as praxis in terms of communities and all of that externally in the world, I think we also need to do these things internally. I mean, yeah, it's not one or the other, it's definitely both, but I think that's also important.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Also, you have a really good video about breadtube infighting that talks a lot about this issue, and I would recommend anyone check that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So all this bullshit with the hot takes and bullshit like that, it's very teenager dynamics. Like, we get a little endorphin boosts for getting likes and having a very hot take, and go, and everybody gets scandalized, and that doesn't help the problems that we are facing in our societies right now. No, it doesn't at all. And what's funny is, like, I kind of liken what we I don't want to make our little group into something bigger than it actually is, but it kind of reminds me of, like, say, like some 18th century literature where a bunch of these people who have, like, sat down and really thought about this stuff really thoroughly are, like, writing down all of these, like, intricate works, and they're trying to figure all of this stuff out. There's, like, a teenager standing on the street that, like, knows, about 15% of what they're talking about, yelling and screaming at everybody as though they have all of the solutions. And you just want to look at them and be like, dude, could you just please, for a second, read what I just wrote? Just for 1 second, do some research, please, for the love of God. But the difference then is that then nobody would listen to the teenager, right? And now the teenager has a platform that is, like, almost whatever it is, I don't even know, like, say millions of subscribers or whatever.
these certain people without really having an idea of what they're talking about. And it's frustrating because it poisons the well. It makes it much more difficult for the people that are trying to do work where it works about unifying and about teaching theory and about spreading class consciousness and informing on how we should go and do direct action and that sort of thing. It makes it more difficult for those people to get the proper messages through when there's so much weight being held on top of it with the drama and the infighting and the factionalism, SJW, dirtbag, woke skull, liberal, blah, 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 blah. It makes everything very, very difficult. And it makes it almost impossible for us to, speaking about praxis, it makes it almost impossible for us to actually unify as a collective force under a banner of, say, whatever it is, defeat capitalism or change the system, something, right? It makes it more difficult for us to actually work under that because we end up just attacking each other instead of attacking the real problem. One thing that American Johnson and I have been talking about, and actually it's an old idea, it comes all the way, I believe, from Nestor Makhno, was the idea of platformism and diversity of tactics, where it doesn't matter. We agree to disagree, basically, right? There is going to be a lot of different factions of a lot of different leftists who have a lot of different ideas on how they go about performing the same basic goal. And we should let them go about doing those sorts of things without inherently competing with them or attacking them or making things difficult for them, because we're inherently fighting for the same cause. And if we have a problem with those people, we can identify it and deal with it personally amongst each other. But we don't need to be making a big spectacle of it, because we do need to show that united force. That's what people are attracted to, right? People are attracted to a bunch of people that want to have the same basic goal, right? Like, that's human nature. So yeah, I think that for us to really start moving forward, we have to start, or we have to stop playing into this commodification of drama that so much has plagued leftist spaces online since we've started here.
Yeah, every time I hear about drama, I just tune it off. I disconnect. Yeah. Beep. My mind filters it and goes to whatever subject, Let's talk solutions.
Yeah. But when we see drama happening online, how do you think it's the best way to go about it? Because often, I don't know, sometimes there will be something going on and I don't agree with something or whatever, and I tend to just ignore it. But how do we prevent this from, I guess we can keep talking about the fact that we need to not have drama, but in terms of practical solutions when these things are happening, how do you think we should go about dealing with that?
Well, one way that a group of people that I've been talking to have kind of figured out is we have to have an agreement. If we actually do have this situation, like I was talking about before, where there's this feedback loop where the audience informs the creator and the creator informs the audience, and it perpetually makes people more angry or factional or whatever it is, then one of those parts of that puzzle has to be pulled out. Something has to be stopped in that cycle. So since we don't have necessarily 100% control over audiences, we do have control over ourselves. So we have to make an agreement with each other not to be attacking each other and promoting the ideas that moving forward with factionalism and creating all of these little tiny diverse little tiny subgroups that are attacking each other. We have to make people not want to, or we have to convince people that that's the bad thing to do, that that's not going to help us, that it's counter to our revolutionary goals, basically. But then we also have to ourselves practice what we preach, not attack one another, and be steadfast in that. I've worked with a couple of individuals. We're kind of in the beginning stages of it now, but of actually working out some sort of treaty that we can send out to all of the different creators and say, hey, listen, we need to stop arguing and bickering and fighting amongst each other. This is counter-revolutionary to our goals. We need to stop all of this. And we need to direct our attention towards the actual problems. And we understand that that isn't going to be equitable for some people that literally make money off of the system. But we've thought about provisions for that as well, right? Like if we're all working together as a large unified group, then we can use our collective clout or collective abilities or whatever to help out those people to keep gaining their clout if they need to, right? Instead of attacking each other and causing more arguments. So that's basically, I think, probably the best way forward is we need to stop the cycle. And to do that, we need to lop off one of the gears. And the only gear that we have access to is ours. So let's lop that gear off. We don't need it anymore. And let's move forward with unity, I think.
I love that idea. It reminds me a lot of what I've read that a lot of more conservative organizations do in terms of having different values that people constantly reminded of and constantly sign up to. And just in general, I feel like there are a lot of things, effective strategies that a lot of marketers or more conservative organizations that have much more money do that we could be taking on board. Obviously, I'm not saying, for the purposes of making organizations more conservative, but just in terms of the fact that we could be doing a lot more to make our organizations more marketable, more friendly to get the message out, learning more from what works, what types of words work, what types of, what things move people further to the left. And definitely the idea of a treaty, it could be very beneficial for something like that.
I think so too. And you're hitting the nail right on the head with that. Is we have already, as collectively as humans, come up with all of the ways of fixing these problems. Like you just said, capitalists work with each other all the time to make agreements, and they don't fight, even though their goals aren't the same. They have one specific goal that is the same, and that's to make money. And that's the most important goal above all else to them. It doesn't matter about politics. It doesn't matter about religion. It doesn't matter about anything else. It does a little, right? Obviously, Chick-fil-A and that sort of thing. But the main goal is to make money. So they unify together and they stop infighting and they work together so they can make more money. We have to use that same model for us. It isn't about making money for us. It's about fixing the problem. And if we truly want to fix the problem, then exactly what you said, we have to use those strategies that have already been created and actually go and do it.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any strategies in particular that you can think of that you think would be very useful? I feel like my knowledge about all of this stuff is really limited. I definitely need to do more reading into strategies and marketing tools and all of this kind of stuff. But are there any that really stick out to you?
As far as marketing strategies for the left, definitely one thing that early on in my YouTube career for this specific channel, I was saying that having a certain type of sort of like a strength or like a confidence is very important, because for a long time leading up to this point, 2016 and forward, a lot of people in the left lacked what I think was sort of a confidence in their ability to speak about their beliefs and so forth. Now, I don't necessarily think that we have a confidence problem. I think that a lot of people have come out of that and they are very much confident. What I think right now, the main thing for us to do to be able to get together and all of that, like I was saying before, is to try to work on factionalism, is to try to work together. Shoot. Sorry, I'm my brain isn't working properly today. Can you repeat the question?
No worries. I think I worded that very strangely. But just, I guess, any strategies in general for leftist organizations or for, the online left, just to what that could be really beneficial that a lot of maybe more conservative organizations have done, or I don't know, to increase our optics or to increase the success of our movements.
Yeah. So that's the optics question is always a really difficult one, because half the time optics are really important, and then half the time optics we can't pay attention to them because inevitably our optics are always going to be bad. So as far as optics being better, so it brings more people towards the left, I think that having a lot of different people doing a lot of different types of content, it really, really, really helps. And a lot of people are saying that certain types of content, say, for example, the debate me bros, right? I'm friends with some of them. I think that they're good people, but sometimes, they could be misguided or whatever. They say that their tactic is 100% wrong. Well, it actually definitely does get a lot of people in, and a lot of people listen to them, and it convinces a lot of people. So maybe their tactic works for some people. But on the other side of that, the woke scolds. The woke scolds are 100% wrong, and they're never right about anything, and they're just going to end up making all of the left look weak. Well, no, because a lot of those woke scolds, quote unquote, are good people who have good arguments, and a lot of people listen to them as well. So I really think that the diversity of tactics that we have right now is working extremely well. And I think all of those things to get people over to the left definitely does help. Like I was saying a moment ago, the number one problem that we have right now that is facing us is that when other groups look at our group, they are immediately turned off by, two things, primarily one thing, which is the factionalism and the infighting and all of that. Though it's in every group talks about how we do it most. So we're in the spotlight on that. So if we do it, then it makes it even worse. And then the other thing is, I guess there's a couple of other things too. The couple of other things is dogmatic language, very complicated, hard to understand language. That's a very big barrier for other groups when they're coming in. So when we're talking about theory, if we're talking about irreconcilable class conflicts that have to do with determinant and reappropriation, like if we're using all of these different words, it's very heady for people and they don't understand what we're talking about. And speaking in very plain, straightforward, easy to understand ways really, really, really helps people know what's going on. And the other thing is the infighting, obviously, but then the attack culture as well, where it's like everybody always hears about how leftists are always on the attack. Again, all groups do it, but we're in the spotlight on that. So when people see us going on the attack and always being reactive and that sort of thing, then it reinstitutes in their brain that we are that way and that leftists are bad, so therefore they shouldn't get involved with us.
By the way, look how we're not attacking each other. We're having a nice conversation and being super friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at that.
Sorry, I steamrolled there. Go ahead.
Look at that. No, it's just it was just a little parenthesis. Keep it up. It's fantastic.
No. But it's totally true, because we can actually sit there and have a real conversation with each other.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we can't, and we do it all the time. And I think that is healthy to promote. And if we could go about not promoting factionalism to our audiences or to our out groups or to our friend groups, everything like that, if we can if we could make it like problematic or a bad word for us to say things like woke scold or like dirtbag or like SJW, if we could make it problematic for people to even consider that there are a bunch of other groups that we specifically don't like because we don't like them and that's the only reason. If we can make people realize, not make people, I hate that idea, but if we can help people to realize that that's a bad thing, then it will really help all of us.
Yeah, not putting labels on each other. We're just comrades, who do different things and think differently, but we all work for the same, objective, like making everybody's life better.
Exactly.
Except even the life of the oppressors. Sorry, I got eliminated. Even the life of the oppressors, because they live so worried that and so paranoid and so fucked up, that they're gonna take away their things. Nobody's gonna take away your things anymore, baby. You're gonna be good. We're gonna be fine. Sorry.
No. That's. I totally agree. That's absolutely right.
Yeah, just stop labeling each other and start working for solutions, and maybe bridging the gap of what we do right now, which I consider to be like an arm of propaganda for pushing the leftist values into the online sphere in this case, to bridge it with real life activism, to actual change in the actual world, like dual power structures and protests and whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. You have some experience in that, right?
I do. Not a ton with building dual power structures, unfortunately, but I've done agitprop. I've worked with a bunch of different groups on the ground level to try to do certain things. And yeah, like the main thing when it comes to theory and praxis, and American Johnson says this, and actually I believe he quoted it from Mao, is that theory always informs praxis and praxis always informs theory, right? And they can't have one without the other.
Yep.
You have to prove that your praxis is true and that it works and that it's valid by actually going out there and using it, right? In the field, you have to see if do protests work, do sit-ins work, do whatever it is. Does this specific action that we're doing, chaining yourself to the front of Parliament or whatever it is that going to get the desired effect that we want it to? And how does the outcome affect how we then go about creating our next movement, right? And we have to always think in that way, because if we're always only talking about theory, if we're always only talking about how capitalism is bad but we don't have any solution to the problem, then people are going to be left with this sense that they have like a sense of hopelessness, right? Because now you're sitting there thinking all of this is bad, all of this is terrible, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, this is insurmountable, I'm just gonna become black-pilled, right? So we have to be able to inform people that, you know what, yes, this is terrible, but there are things that you can do and you need to be doing them right now. A lot of people talk about, oh, the revolution, it'll be great, but it's not going to happen for 100 years from now. It's going to happen way far in the future. It's never going to be any kind of actualized thing. Don't worry about it. Right now, we have to deal with whatever it is, electoralism, voting for Joe Biden, whatever it is. That's a flawed way to look at things, because if you want something to happen, you have to work towards it, right? And if all you're doing is saying that it's always going to be in the future and that it's not happening right now, then it won't happen now, and that it'll never happen in the future because you're just pushing it off and pushing it off. We have to work towards what the world that we want right now. And if we aren't, nobody's going to work towards that for us. And we already know that the people that are in charge are going to work towards something very much antithesis to that, probably something closer to fascism. So if we allow that to happen, right, and we don't stand up and fight, then we are inevitably going to allow them to win. So yeah, getting out there, getting active. Politics isn't a spectator sport. We have to think about that every day. And if it makes you mad, if it makes you feel frustrated, if you feel like you need to do something, do it, right? Get out there. If you need to put up posters or something to get that itch out of your soul, then do it. Join an org. Get out there and get invested. This stuff shouldn't be so segregated from our minds, right? Being able to actively be a part of our community shouldn't be something that we have to sub out to somebody that we vote for every 4 years. That's something that we should be doing every single day. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. They're the most important people in your entire life right now, especially right now, because they're the ones that when everything else goes to shit, when everything else goes down, they're going to have your back. And if you have their back, you are guaranteed that they will have yours. So yeah, you have to get involved in your communities. You have to get active. It's so important. If you see your neighbor mowing his lawn, go offer to trim his hedges for him, because that's how we actually do a real revolution here. Not by voting for somebody, by actually communicating with each other.
Yeah, no, the electoral circus is not going to take us anywhere. You just inspired me a very silly cover right now. I was like, you said something, and I was like, check it out.
Yeah, I was like, damn. Yeah, so many truth bombs. I love it.
It's like theory and praxis. No, theory and praxis. Theory and praxis. They come together like a dual axis. That's for sure, my brother. We can't have one without the other. Sorry, it was a silly Frank Sinatra.
Oh, I love it. That's perfect. Oh yeah, it's true though. It's so true.
Yeah.
And now we have a song, so that means that we have to do it. Now that there's a song, that means it's in stone, man.
Yeah, there's a song about it. It's got to be true.
That's true.
And also, another thing is that if we only ever talk about capitalism is bad, I feel like so many right-wing people I know actually really agree that capitalism is bad, and they agree that the way the world is run is really fucked. But then their solution to that is to get as much money as they can, try and make their life as less shit as possible, and theirs and their own family and stuff like that, because they haven't been given any kind of solution. Just like, oh, the world is bad, they kind of go the other way and think, well, okay, this is the solution. So yeah, I really loved everything that you said. But what do you think in terms of like very kind of practical strategies? Because we often talk about organizing and agitating and educating, but what would you say to the average person who's thinking about getting organized? Where should they start? What should they look into? And are there any strategies that you think are particularly effective, and some others that you think are perhaps less effective?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the very first thing that everybody should do is go to genstrike.org. They have a lot of really important information on there that will give everybody a little bit of an idea on how to start, either start your own org or get involved in other orgs. I know that they've been working together with the IWW and a few other groups as well. So that's a wonderful place to start. When it comes to actually getting out there on your own and doing something, right? You immediately think that you just by yourself should go run out into the middle of Parliament, start picketing or whatever. Maybe if you heard one of my videos, you're like, I gotta go knock on doors. Definitely those are great ideas, right? But you have to take the time to actually actualize those sorts of things. A friend of mine, he's a Christian, and he was telling me a story the other day about how there's a story in the Bible about how Jesus whittled himself a whip, right, out of some, I think it was out of some bark or something like that. And he slowly whittled himself a whip because he wanted to, I don't know, I think he was going to attack somebody or something. I don't remember exactly how the story was. He was going to do some sort of thing with the whip, right? That was important. But instead of immediately going out and attacking these people or doing the thing, he very slowly, very calmly just sat there whittling his whip together, right? Trying to figure out how he's going to make this whip. And that is basically a metaphor, right? For you have to take the time to strategize and to think and to actually take the time instead of just going out there and attacking. You got to sit there and whittle your whip. You got to figure out how to do things. And one of the main things about that is if you wanted to go out there and you wanted to start protesting and picketing, it's a noble idea, but you don't want to do it alone. So you have to go talk to people, right? Pretty obvious. So who are the people that you would immediately want to go talk to? Well, you'd probably think that I wish that there was like a Black Panther organization or something like that that could go out there with a bunch of guns and we could storm the Capitol. Maybe there is. If you can find them, go join them. But if not, then the most likely scenario is that you're going to have to get together with people that you know. So if you have a bunch of friends that have similar ideas to you, right, talking to them and getting them on board with those sorts of things is the best way to go about it. When it comes to anarchist organizations, you're usually talking about an affinity group of about 3 to 5 people, right? That's on purpose, and it's very important for a few reasons. One, if you have an affinity group of 3 to 5 people, you are close, tight-knit, and you usually agree to pretty much the same things, right? You'll have conversations with each other, but you know basically what the other guy is thinking, and you can work together very strategically with each other. The other major benefit of that is that if you're a group of 3 to 5 people, usually friends that know each other, it's harder for anybody to infiltrate you. Anyway, but on top of that, if you have a group of about 3 to 5 people and you're working together with other groups, say other affinity groups of 3 to 5 people, then you can come together and you can organize, say, a protest or blocking the railroad or chaining yourself to the front of a building. But you have to do it in a strategic way, right? Mm-hmm. So say, for example, you're going to do a protest outside of a building. You got your 3 to 5 people and they're working with 2 other groups of 3 to 5 people. So you got, say, 15, you got about 25 people there, something like that. right? And you're all standing out in front of the building. Are you all going to be marching around with signs and locking yourselves to the doors? Well, probably not. You're going to have to think about that strategically. So a certain number of you might lock yourselves to the doors. A certain number of you might be playing defense to make sure that nobody can get close to those people. Another group of those people might be subbing in for those people that are playing defense or that are locking themselves to the door so they don't get too tired, don't get too hungry, have to take bathroom breaks, that sort of thing. So subbing in, blah blah blah. And then you'd have another group that could come in and they could keep resources and supplies. Say you have medics just in case things go wrong. Say you have people that have food and resources, water, that sort of thing. You could even set up triage tents or whatever it is off in the corner. Like all of these things are things that you have to think about before you go in to do a real sort of demonstration or action. And when you're working with a larger org, they would have an easier time doing those sorts of things because sometimes they'll have experience in that. So you'll have people with experience going into it as well.
In Spain, we have like lawyers on call, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For example, I think I was speaking to somebody that worked with IWOC, which is an organization that works with prisoners. And that's exactly what they do. They have lawyers, they have different groups. Like if you ended up getting hauled in, say if you got arrested or whatever, they gave you a certain phone number that you had to phone so you could get help and all of those sorts of things. So yeah, getting involved with an organization and getting involved with their structure definitely does help. It's not always possible, right? Sometimes you just don't have those resources. But then if you don't, it's up to you to look into it, right? So I know, wink, wink, wink. I know a bunch of people that are doing some kind of demonstrations in real life, right? And the very first thing that they do is they look into the laws that have to do with that area, right? Every law is going to be different in every single area. So you're going to have to look into the legalities around, are you allowed to protest? How many people are allowed to protest? For instance, in and around my area, you can have, if you have more than 3 people organized in a group at one time, doing something that is against the government policy, then you can be considered a terrorist organization and you can be hauled to jail. Just organizing 3 people together. That's all it takes, right?
Yeah, laws are stupid. You need to have people, who are up to date with that bullshit and tell you how to trick it, how to use it, how to not, get caught in those traps.
Exactly. And if you have somebody that is a lawyer friend or somebody that studied law, man, you're on top of the world because you just figured out a whole lexicon of bullcrap that you would otherwise have no idea how to read by having that person on your side. But if you don't have that, then it's up to you and your group to really buckle down and start reading, because if you are able to do something, following by the law never works. I understand that. And I wouldn't advocate for people to break the law, but I do understand that people will make that argument. But if you do understand the law, right, then you have a better chance of actually getting through the thing that you want to do. So if you want to do a demonstration, knowing how to organize, knowing how to demonstrate in that place is of the utmost of importance. Also looking at the tactics that or the outcomes of other protests that have happened in your area is important as well. And I'm stressing a lot on protests here, but I don't want to say at all that that's the only form of activism. Building dual power structures is just as important, if not more important than actually protesting.
Yep.
So and obviously doing that, it has a whole different confluence of other things that are involved as well.
A lot of cleaning, mostly. To be honest.
Yeah, a lot of cleaning, a lot of getting food, a lot of legwork, and a lot of just helping people. That's the best part about dual power structures, is that you get to help people directly, right? The protests are like an interesting outlet for your aggression and a way to direct things for the most part. But really where you do the best work is that every single day getting out there and doing that work on the ground, right? You can have a protest once in a while, but it's not going to make any sort of difference that, say, a Food Not Bombs group couldn't have done, or that wouldn't have done by feeding the homeless and all of these people that are running out, don't have their jobs, right? So.
Yeah,
sorry.
and then we have to apologize to all the 14-year-olds who are just like LARPing about the take of the Winter Palace and whatnot, because revolution is mostly about cleaning and about carrying things around and about helping people out. And it's a very long process. It's not it's heroic in a way that we're finding out right now with the COVID-19 crisis.
Yep.
That most heroes, don't have guns on them, but they wear, they wear medical gowns, or they have cleaning products with them, and they cook for people. So it's most of the revolutionary work that will happen in the care section. It will be people caring for people, which is like the most important thing in a revolution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say quickly that's the whole point of whenever we do something, we want to do it. Well, if you're an anarchist like me, you want to do it as anarchistically as possible, and that's part of the strategy. Is that we have to do all of the things that we say we want in the future. We have to do that now, right? So setting up the free stores, setting up the food not bombs groups, setting up the worker cooperatives and housing cooperatives and that sort of thing. That's how we go about doing it for the future. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, I think that's one of the problems, I guess, of the type of history that we're taught at the moment, because I feel like we always think, this big man theory of history that, how the revolutions are built from a very charismatic leader, or we ourselves kind of want to be the heroes of our movements and we want to be remembered, but we kind of forget that, most people, like, history is built off of so many people fighting for change whose names we will never remember. And I think that because we have this idea that this is the way we bring about change, through like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, or some, this romantic idea of these speeches that are so powerful and everything like that. Often then when we see that actually organizing isn't like that at all, we feel like, oh, we're not doing enough, or this is boring, or this isn't, I don't want to get involved in this. But most movements throughout history, encompass so many of these things, of the everyday things that both of you just spoke about. And I think that we need to kind of get rid of this idea of what revolution looks like. So yeah.
Could we say that historians have a little bit of a boner for big men and war? Because guns are shaped like penises, and they're there sitting in their dark rooms. Well, I want one of those. And then you start hearing like strange things that historian's room has like a little funk to it,
I never thought about it like that.
Sending a hug to all my historian friends. But
you know what? That's true. Historians do really have that hard on for the big man syndrome, right? And you know what? Sometimes that's good. Not the historian having a hard on part, but I mean,
they may have hard ons too.
Yeah, I shouldn't kink shame. I'm sorry. That was wrong with me.
Just kidding.
But you know what? Like sometimes it's great to have Malcolm X and
absolutely,
Lenin or name your revolutionary hero, one of the founding fathers, whatever it is. Sometimes it's good to have that figurehead, that leadership role, right, where you get to look at somebody and be like, oh, I want to aspire to be that person. But you have to remember that the work isn't being done by them, right? They are good as an inspiration. They are good as something to like look at and not revere, but to acknowledge their flaws, but to also want to be encouraged by them and be energized by them and invigorated by them. That's really important. Bo from the Fifth Column, every time I watch one of his videos afterwards, I want to go do stuff because I'm like, oh, that made me energized. I'm really happy about that. Like, you're speaking my language, man. But at the same time, I don't want most people, we think in this capitalistic world, right, that we're all just momentarily inconvenienced millionaires. And unfortunately, that same idea and thought process slides over to the socialists, where we think, oh, we're just momentarily inconvenienced revolutionary leaders, right? Like you imagine like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these people that are on YouTube, they want to grab a flag and run out into the middle of the thing and be like, I'm the leader now. Well,
Yeah.
no, I don't want people to
Yeah.
think that they should be the leaders. I would more prefer most people becoming a statistic, right? I don't necessarily want that one person to go out and do that one amazing thing, though it is amazing. I want all of you to do amazing things. I want everybody to get out there and increase those numbers. You see numbers on online saying that in a disaster situation, only 50% of the people help each other. Make it 70, make it 90, right? Get out
Mm-hmm.
there and do those things, because that's where it makes the difference. Not one guy. Malcolm X was a wonderful person, but it wasn't a movement behind him. It wasn't a movement behind Marx. It wasn't a movement behind any of the founding fathers. Well, or maybe it was in that case, but most of the time it's a movement of the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we want to reiterate. It's not about the big man, right? It's about you. It's about me. We need to fight.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I guess the capitalist class have vested interest in making us think that it was these individuals to stop us from coming together collectively, because that would be a threat to their power interests, I guess. And I suppose we see this whole thing as well when we have such an increase in this hero narrative of like Elon Musk, and then all these hero movies that are coming about these days. So yeah, I think this is such a common thing within the zeitgeist at the moment.
I got so pissed off. I got so pissed off when on Star Trek Discovery they put Elon Musk with the great geniuses of the 21st century. It's like fuck that line of dialogue. Even when it's being said by you into Star Trek, Aaron?
I am really into Star Trek, and I haven't watched all of Discovery because it was hurting me.
Oh shit. That I mean, I don't have an issue with the series in general that I love, because Tilly's a great character. I love the whole thing, but that fucking line about Elon fucking Musk. I mean,
Oh my God.
what the it's like, and it was the same. Like couple of decades ago, they had the same hard on for that other motherfucker, the one with the what's his
Stephen Hawking?
the turtleneck guy from Apple.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, he was supposed to be a genius. Fuck that shit. They made like several movies about the motherfucker, and they are salesmen. Fuck that shit. They're salesmen, and they're not really good. They're just lucky.
Oh, but doesn't that remind you of something? Doesn't it remind you of, like, oh, I don't know, maybe Napoleon or any number of remember that history is written by the people who won, and it isn't necessarily the war leader that gets to put their name in the history books now. It's the business magnate, it's the billionaire, it's the person that runs Microsoft. They are the one that everybody trusts now, and of course, the idea in everybody's head would be that we're going to have some savior come along and fix all of the problems. That story is as old as time. I hear people in chat all the time talking about how they themselves think that they're saviors and that they can come up with better ways to. This is something that happens all of the time. And since history is written by the people who've won, people like Elon Musk get to do little cameo appearances in in Iron Man, where they get to basically be peers to a superhuman with super brain. Like ThoughtSlime made a video about that a while back.
Yeah, that was a great video.
It was a great video because it's so true. It's so true. And like, it isn't about having a super brain. Elon Musk and Bill Gates and all of these other people, they're hacks. They came up with a couple of good ideas. They made billions of dollars. And because our minds are so focused on the idea that that your wealth is inherently and intrinsically tied to your bank account, that we see these people as being actual real life superheroes, even if they are nothing more than just regular people who had a good idea and were able to manipulate the system.
Hey,
right?
and who live on their back on the back of their employees, which is like, fuck those people. Those people are fucking garbage.
And normally came from a very wealthy background themselves as well. So it's not as if they're like these self-made men as they like to claim.
Yeah. 60% of all, I think, billionaires in the United States, or all wealthy people in the United States, 60% of it comes out of inherited wealth. So, and that's being very conservative, those numbers.
I didn't know that.
And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
men are not self-made, never ever. They're like literally made in their mom's belly, so they're made by their mom. Your mom made you. Every time you see like a self-proclaimed self-made man, you tell them, no, your mom made you. Your mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I also this whole thing about talking about these billionaires kind of makes me think about something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and I don't know how much you both can speak on this, because I don't know, it's kind of complicated, I guess, maybe. But recently I've been watching Mr. Robot and getting really inspired by this revolution in there, where they basically I don't know, are hackers, and they use technology to infiltrate like bigger organizations and stuff. And it's just been making me think a lot more about the ways in which we could be leveraging technology more on the left in our organizing. One, first of all, just to get more savvy about how we're being, like with surveillance and how our data is being used and all of that, but also how we can get on board with a lot of these things and do more with technology. I mean, if we could do things like, I don't know, hijack the media, or bring down certain organizations, or I don't know, like, get more into hacking and hacktivism and all of that. I suppose, I mean, like I said, a lot of this requires us to be good with technology, which I don't know. I don't really know how that works that much. But definitely, I feel like we have sort of left a vacuum there for right-wing people to swoop in and take over technology and know what to do. And we've sort of left it to its own devices. I know there are organizations out there that are doing great work with that. But do you think this is something we should be talking more about and getting more knowledgeable about and organizing around more?
Absolutely. Hacktivism is a really interesting thing to look into. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it's our fault that there is a vacuum there. It's just that for many, many, many decades, the left is being stifled and destroyed. And until 2016, most people didn't even know that there was a left at all. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We thought that liberalism was as far left as you could go, and anything further than that was fascism. But now we are starting to realize that there are different ways of thinking about things, that leftist theory is like being reinvigorated. For example, and I'll just throw out a small example. The first edition of the Communist Manifesto, the first run, had 1,000 copies issued out into Germany, right? The first run of the Communist Manifesto. Now, I release a video and I get about 1,000 views. Vosh does a live stream and he gets whatever it is, like 6,000 views in a live stream, right? Mm-hmm. And that, like, our little leftist corner of the world has started to grow. It's really started to grow, and it started to make big changes. As far as hacktivism goes, we are still such a very young group that a lot of these people that you're talking about that should be out there becoming hacktivists probably are. They're probably in school right now learning all about the things that we're saying and learning all about the things that the government is saying. And they're looking at that going, well, you know what? I'm going to learn a bunch of stuff. And then I'm going to use it.
It's kind of a little bit of our job to radicalize hackers. And in a way, there's also some little truth there that leftist hackers, they either get arrested or they get bought with a shit ton of money to work for corporations. Basically, if you're like a successful hacker, you usually do you break into somebody's company and say you're security shit, so give me a very well paid job, and they give you a very well paid job, and now they're protected. That's how it works. So radicalizing hackers, it should be a little bit of our job. I must say, in justice, that in social centers and stuff like that, what we call in Spain centros sociales, we always had a space called the Hack Lab, which is not just for actual, IT hackers, but all kinds of, construction and hands-on projects for life, but also dealing with the internet problem since probably the 1990s. And I've seen a couple of hack labs also in Norway, places I lived in. But Sure, there are hack labs out there. I'm not sure if we're capable of the powerful moves that we should do to take down, for instance, Facebook or Google.
Not right now, but I mean, like, most of the people that are brilliant minds are hearing about a lot of this stuff for the first time. And then in 2 or 3 years from now, a lot of these people are going to be graduating, coming out of college, university, that sort of thing. And they're going to have a completely different mentality, completely different thought pattern, completely different worldview than any of us did. Being that, like, I'm old, right? Like,
tell me about it.
Yeah, right. Like me and you, like, come on, man. Like, we had to accept the capitalist world the way that it was our entire lives, thinking that nothing would ever change. We didn't even know that there was a fucking problem, probably, right? I don't know. I didn't, and maybe you didn't either.
I've always known. I've always been a leftist, but I was like less ignorant about the solutions.
Yeah,
right now.
And I wish that I had that ability myself, but I had completely drank the Kool-Aid, right? I didn't know that there is any other way. A lot of these kids don't. A lot of these kids don't feel that way. A lot of these kids are actually hearing about things that we never were even taught. I was having a conversation with my friend Silverface on YouTube. Check out Silverface's channel; they're wonderful. I was having a conversation with them on Twitter, and they're asking me, "Hey, do you ever remember learning about fascism or communism or any kind of ism back in school?" And I'm like, no, I don't. So I did some independent research, and I looked into the curriculum in Alberta, where they live. Since I live in Canada, it should be roughly the same, to see what they had said about it. And I searched through the entire school curriculum and was able to only find one paragraph where they mentioned communism at all. And they mentioned it in relation to fascism. It was one small paragraph that said, and it's probably like a one-day class, if you're going to be honest, that said something about we are going to compare and contrast ideas like communism, fascism, socialism to why they don't follow by our belief of liberal democracy. Right? So already in the school curriculum, the only time that you ever hear about any of these isms, about any idea other than liberal democracy, is in contrast to the already to the thing that we already believe is being perfect, liberal democracy, right? That's how we actually learn about those things. So I didn't know about it. You might have known about it, but a lot of my friends never even heard about it. But a lot of these kids nowadays, they have heard about it, and they're pissed.
Shit, history class in Spain it sucked. We learned about lists and lists and lists of kings with name and number. It was...
Yeah, and in England, my history consisted of learning about World War II and how great we were, and we never learned at all about colonization at all. Any of our history of all the shit that we did across the globe. It's so fucked up.
Yeah, it's still like common thought that the war was won by the English and the Americans. Like the Soviet Union were just there.
Yeah, and
I know.
We were taught, oh, Churchill was such a great guy as well, completely disregarding all the shit that he did in India and all of that. So, yeah, but I really like your point, because I remember reading somewhere, I can't remember the exact statistics, but it was something like 40% of millennials in the US no longer believed in capitalism or something. And it was like 1 in 3 in Germany didn't believe in capitalism. I was like, whoa, this is actually so high. I'm probably getting the numbers wrong, but it was a large amount of people, and I think it's such a good sign. We need to be leveraging that in whatever way we can.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep,
totally agree. like I said a moment ago, the original release. I don't know why it holds in my brain. The original release of the Communist Manifesto was 1,000 copies. 1,000.
Yeah.
Remember, the history of the planet was only 1/7 of, or was 1/7. Sorry, 1/7 of what it is now. So it was 1 billion people, right? But 1,000 copies. So that means that if we were to have one video that reached 7,000 people, that would be about the same reach as the Communist Manifesto originally had, and that's astonishing.
Yeah,
that's really.
If a PragerU video didn't reach like triple the amount of people.
Hey, you know what? But you know, we're talking about apples and oranges, right? Like the imperialists and the capitalists of their day, back in those days, they were releasing books and they had a monopoly and control over everything too.
That's true.
Right. So of course they're going to get more views than we do. But the dissent is there, right? That's the cracks are showing. And it's just a matter of just getting our wedges in there and opening those cracks. Right?
I would even say with the crisis of COVID-19, they're showing even more. And I think it's going to be important. Like one of the things I really like about Gen Strike 2020 is it's that this moment right now, it's a great opportunity. Because right now, capitalism is as weak as it's ever been. Like it's very, very weak. It's very contested. Capitalism is right now a wounded beast. It's dangerous, but it's up for grabs. As of now, it's up for grabs. So we really need to step up in our game and say, hey, it's over. Let's do some socialism now. Let's implement some socialist measures. This is not about doing a socialism as a brand. But let's do more cooperatives. Let's do more democratically controlled system of governance that doesn't imply that a few motherfuckers tend to get to choose for everybody else. It is time right now. Let's kick your boss and your landlord and fuck them up, big time, in a video game.
In a video game, in Minecraft.
Sorry about that.
You're right. Right now is the time, right? Capitalism is on the ropes, and not only is it on the ropes in one country, it's on the ropes internationally.
Yep.
So what a better time to have an international revolution than literally when capitalism is failing internationally.
Yeah.
What a wonderful time to be alive. All terrifying at the same time.
Both. Definitely.
I was wondering, to your point about the fact that the Communist Manifesto, they sold 1,000 copies when it was first released. That makes me feel a lot better, because often if I get 1,000 views on a video, I'm like, oh, this is so low, because I guess we're used to comparing ourselves to what most YouTube videos get, which is a lot more. But yeah, that definitely makes me feel a lot better. But do you think that in a way, though, we're so, I don't know, these days I feel like we're so bombarded with so much different information constantly. I wonder how much of an effect a lot of what we do has, because it's just, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people just constantly throughout their day get bombarded with so many different types of media. I don't know, I guess there's no real solution to that, and I guess that shouldn't mean that we should stop doing what we're doing. But I'm just wondering how we can get around that. But I suppose that's just the nature of the platform. But yeah.
I think one radicalized person at a time, right? We hear stories all the time about people who were on the right. We have people in the chat right now. Sam was telling us I used to be right wing. I was raised in a liberal family, and I drank the Kool-Aid of Jordan Peterson. And now, look, Sam is here in the chat with us and discussing really good points, So one radicalized person now at a time, I would say. But Aaron, if you want to add something, because I jumped in.
Oh, no. That literally was the exact point I was going to make, too. Yeah, is that every day we see radicalized people. And some people will make the argument, I've had lots of people in my own audience say that they become radicalized because of me. Well, yeah, I mean, I've had that too. Probably both of you have as well. But it's not just that, right? I go looking through Twitter and through different groups and stuff like that just because I'm bored sometimes. And I find it consistently, there is more and more people that are having very radical, very anti-capitalist opinions. And it's just happening at an ever increasing rate. And the more it happens in smaller groups, the more it's going to happen in the larger groups, because it just becomes more and more just a normal thing. Kyle, I don't know if you know who these people are, but Kyle Kulinski and the Humanist Report, Mike Figueredo, they used to be for many years just hardline leftist, or not leftist, sorry, liberal progressives. Yeah, they were just liberal progressives, right? And now of them, Kyle Klinsky the other day kind of shocked me when he said it, but they were saying that probably an armed revolution is probably a good idea. Two progressive liberals are like, yeah, you know what? I don't see a way of fixing this. We might need an armed revolution. I don't know, guys. Like, we might need that. And that's becoming the mainstream discourse, right? Even though there is only a small group of people that were talking about it in 2016, that group got exponentially larger in 2017 and 2018 and 2019 and now 2020. We have this global pandemic. And all of these liberals that are coming out of the woodwork and saying, what the hell is going on? All of these conservatives, surprisingly, are now saying, I don't like police officers anymore because they're telling us what to do and they're taking away our rights. Conservatives saying that they don't like the police. My mind is blown.
Yeah, they do it for selfish reasons, but yeah, still the word is out there. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? They agree with me for the wrong reasons. They still agree with me. I don't care how we get there. I just care that we get there.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll fight them in armed combat later once we finally abolish the state.
We'll educate them when the time comes, right? It's like that selfish attitude. You can do without it. It's better to cooperate and be friends with people and be in harmony and stuff.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. But like our rhetoric is.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Aaron, you're breaking down, my dear. Can you do it again?
Hello?
Have we lost Aaron? Come back. Aaron, come back. 'Cause you were making a very good point. Please come back. Aaron, come back. 'Cause you were making a very good point. I want to listen to it. Please come back. You here? Aaron? You're here. You're back with us.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah.
I don't know. My internet went out just as I was talking about revolution. How strange.
Let's do it. Take two.
I don't remember what I was saying, but yeah, we'll move forward, I guess. They clearly don't want me talking about something.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Take it away, fam.
I also wanted to ask you a bit about, do you think that there's any kind of forms of organization at the moment that are really ineffective, aside from the obvious ones of, infighting and things like that? Would you say that there's certain things that we should be trying to avoid? I ask because at the moment we have Extinction Rebellion, which I'm sure you've heard of in the UK, and there's so much controversy around it, and I'm still not sure exactly how I feel about it. But, some people saying in the end, although they say they're anti-capitalist, a lot of what they're fighting for is the anti-capitalist and all of that. And then other people saying we need to stop criticizing these movements and get on board and try and radicalize them and all of this. And I don't know, you hear similar things, I think, about things like food, not bombs. Oh, it's not radical enough, or this or that. And I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I think, because I don't know enough specifically about these organizations to have a proper opinion. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what are your thoughts in general about forms of organizing that aren't necessarily effective?
Sure. Yeah. Like liberal forms of organizing always frustrate me because sometimes they'll have the right mindset, but they won't have any sort of action that has teeth to it. Right. So whenever you want to do something specifically in direct action form, you want to make sure that it has intent and that it's achieving a certain goal. Whenever you're going and doing anything, it doesn't matter what it is. Say you're doing a rent strike, say you're doing a labor strike, whatever. Those are all specific things that are trying to obtain a specific set of goals. So when I use this example in a couple of my videos, when we started having a problem with the Yellow Vest movement here in Canada being infiltrated by a bunch of alt-right neo-Nazis, I believe they were called the Sons of Odin. The liberal organized, the liberal organization around here, the group that wanted to stop them or do something about it, had no idea how to handle it. So what they decided was they were going to do something called a clown count. Now, a clown count is basically where they, for every single Nazi that showed up, they would have their contributors or whatever donate $1 to Planned Parenthood, so they could, I don't know, basically laugh at all the right-wing chuds and say, oh, it doesn't matter how many people showed up, we donated to Planned Parenthood, ha 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 ha. Well, while those people are donating to Planned Parenthood, the Nazis are gaining national attention. They're having their voices heard and their opinions listened to, and everybody is listening to what they're saying and paying attention to them, and they're recruiting people. So while you're having a little circle jerk and a laugh, the Nazis are actually building their resources. Yep. See, that right there, that to me is an incredibly inefficient form of activism, because it not just does nothing, it does worse than nothing. It convinces people that they're doing something, which takes their better used time away from doing something that helps towards doing something that doesn't do anything. So you have to really be cautious about those sorts of situations. Now, in regards to, say, Extinction Rebellion, okay, the group itself may or may not be very liberal. It probably is, considering it exists inside of a liberal capitalist realism world where most people are liberals, right? So yeah, it's probably got a lot of liberal tendencies, and it might not really know how to defeat capitalism, or maybe the leadership has been infiltrated by capitalists and they've moved their goals from their original revolutionary goals to new ones. Happens all the time, happens in all unions, happens in lots of different groups. Your job as an anarchist is not necessarily to get in there and involve yourself in Extinction Rebellion, whole stop, and they're my group, so therefore that's how I'm going to do all of my praxis. In my opinion, your job is to build a affinity group of about 4 or 5 or 6 individuals that you vehemently agree with and that you can work together with on doing different types of praxis. And if, for example, Extinction Rebellion is doing something that is similarly within the same kind of realm as you are, right? They're fighting for climate justice, and that's a thing that you want to fight for as well. Then you get in there with your 4 or 5 people and you join the protest. You don't have to join Extinction Rebellion necessarily, but you become part of the protest. A lot of liberal protesters fucking hate that, though, and they will try to do whatever they can to silence you or get your voices to be not heard. Right? But you have to fight against that, and you have to try to get your voices to be heard. So you get your bullhorns, you get your banners, you get your flags, you get your protest signs, and you march along with them, because that's the idea of platformism and that sort of thing. Diversity of tactics is that we have to work together, even if our revolutionary goals aren't identical. We have to work together so we can achieve the smaller goals first. So in regards to joining Extinction Rebellion, join them if you want, don't join them if you want. But more importantly is to do the direct action and try to form smaller groups on your own, or get involved in smaller groups.
Yeah, I always say this thing. I'm a musician, so I do a lot of choruses. I repeat myself like a broken record. So I always say this, like be inspired with whoever is more radical than you. And be patient with whoever is less radical than you. You know? And my only beef with Extinction Rebellion is like they didn't have to do that protest and disrupting the tube, the metro, the subway, whatever word you used to fancy to use for that because they were disrupting the proletariat, the people who go to work. If you want to make a proper disruption, do it at a rich people's place, you know, do it at a center of power, do it as something that, you know, if you want to protest about climate change, I mean, disrupt a ferry company or a boat company or disrupt a meat market or something like that, you know, things that really affect the carbon emissions of it, but not the subway station where all the working people are, who are gonna get pissed off at you because you're being in the way of them actually doing, you know, getting on with their lives. But that was unfortunate. So that's my only thing.
Yeah, and that's such a great point. And that always happens when you involve the law and liberalism into protest, right? Is that it always defangs the protest. when the Charlottesville protests were happening, obviously fucking asshole, terrible people were trying to get it set up. But what they did was they wanted to have it in Emancipation Park, which is kind of a centralized area where they were that was going to disrupt a whole bunch of people and everybody was going to pay attention to it. The government there wanted to move the protests from Emancipation Park to a larger park where it would cause less commotion and less hassle, right? I don't agree with the right-wingers' causes. Obviously, they're a bunch of murderous, fucking terrible, degenerate pieces of shit. But they fought to make sure that they could stay in Emancipation Park, and that's for one good reason. If you're in an area where you're actually visible and you're actually having all of these people know that you're there, then your goals are easily obtainable, as opposed to putting yourself off in the free speech zone, off in the corner behind a fence, behind a barricade, and out of sight of anybody, right? Who cares if you're doing it in the middle of a park? At that point, you could have a fucking a trade fair. You could start setting up booths and selling fucking popcorn. It's not a revolutionary group at that point. It's just a party, right? To actually make revolutionary change, you have to disrupt the capitalist industry that's there. So going to a subway isn't going to do that. But maybe blocking, maybe marching on the boss. Go directly to the guy's house and go march out front of his house. There you go. That's way more important. And that's going to get things changed immediately.
Yeah, but of course, if you go to where the powers that be are, then you're gonna get the cops on you, and that's it isn't like it was Malvina Reynolds who sung that song, right? It isn't nice to block the blockways. It isn't nice to go to jail. There are nicer ways to do it, but the nice ways always fail. It is a nice. You told us once. You told us twice. But if that's freedom's price, we don't mind. So get your hands dirty. Do what you need to do. Get arrested. Fuck it.
That's right. Man, that's why music is so important. That's what we're missing right now, too. That's one of the things that I really hate that we're missing, is that the capitalist system that we live under only allows for music that doesn't go against their narrative, right? Some of them do slip through the cracks, but they still end up having a liberal agenda at the end. For example, like the song Mosh by Eminem talks about all this revolutionary stuff. Get in the streets, put on your black hoodie, anarchy. We're going to go vote for Obama because that's the way we fix things, right? Like every time. But that's something that we really miss right now, is that revolutionary struggle music that most people can actually hear. You got the punk bands that are underground, right? You got a few bands that are doing David Rovick's wonderful musician doing some really good work. But it's just like, man, that revolutionary music changes people's minds. Hearing things like that put to song, it embeds it in your brain. It's like a meme, but on steroids. And you just think about it over and over again. Those lyrics make me want to do something.
I'm gonna do a shameless plug, but I do have some music videos in my channel. And but we still have people like Public Enemy, Prophets of Rage, and Talib Kweli. Talib Kweli is fantastic.
Yeah,
there's amazing lyricists. We got really good people that are like big, actually. I mean, big in terms of they have huge audiences and they're very relevant in the music game, who are still revolutionary and trustworthy. But yeah, we could use some more. So, musicians of the world, unite!
Yes, absolutely. You have to make it fun again,
Immortal
right?
Technique.
Yes, yeah.
Low-key, all these people. Yeah.
Run the Jewels too is actually pretty good. They're not bad too. They're more social democrat, but like not bad at all. I like that. But yeah, we need more revolutionary music. We need more revolutionary everything. Paint everything red and black, as far as I'm
Yep.
Absolutely. I also really love the point that you made about how a lot of the time the certain organizations, they start off with radical, but as they become more popular, they become more and more liberal. And I feel like I've seen that happen so many times with different friends who they will try and go into different organizations thinking, oh, I'll change it from the inside out. But in the end, most of the time they end up being changed by the institutional organization or the people that they're surrounded by. And I think that's also something that we have to be so wary of, being co-opted, how easily that can happen. And yeah, that's one of my problems with NGOs as well. I mean, there are a lot of good non-governmental organizations, but I feel like a lot of them just have this defanging, pacifying effect that you talked about, and which is incredibly frustrating a lot of the time. But yeah, I like what you said about creating, just getting together with a few other people, and working together towards a more radical goal, and working together with more liberal organizations if it's beneficial, and trying to change them if you can. But I really like that.
Thank you. Yeah, and it goes by, it's an old anarchist philosophy. No permanent organizations, and no professional revolutionaries, right? Permanent organizations always eventually end up leading to falling into the hands of they always end up having this thing where they fight for a goal, say it is for revolutionary activity, but then if they achieve their goal, instead of doing the thing that they should do, dissolve, disappear, they stay around, and they then have their own goal, which is to maintain that structure.
And they
right?
bureaucratize.
So now,
They bureaucratize as shit.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
They bureaucratize. They become very bureaucratic, and
Exactly. Yeah. So they no longer have the goal of that revolutionary activity. They have the goal of staying in control, or just staying in existence in the first place.
Yeah.
And as far as professional revolutionaries go, that doesn't mean that you can't make money off of your Twitter account or whatever it is, right? But it means that there should not be a person that is professionally and specifically gaining off of talking about revolutionary activity, specifically for the aesthetics of it, right? You need to be doing to actually achieve a goal, and not just be doing it to make money. And that's a really hard line to walk on, especially right now when we are motivated intrinsically by that profit motive on online spheres in Twitter and Facebook, and that you make money off of likes, you make money off of all of those things, right? So it's hard to walk that line. Right. But we want to try to not have professional revolutionaries, because then you end up with somebody like Lenin, right? Who or Mao, who Mao specifically started off sort of anarchist, started off pretty good, and became a professional revolutionary, and then became a totalitarian dictator, right? Because he got a little bit of power. That power influenced him and gave him more power, gave him what is it called? Validation. Made him more validated, and then more people were validated that he was the leader around him, which increases that validation. It's the same thing that we have going on here, right? Online. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we continuously see people begin to dilute their messages more and more as they become more motivated by metrics or by money, I guess. And there's something to be said for diluting a message slightly to appeal to a wider audience. I'm not against that inherently, but it definitely is something that we all need to be aware of. I mean, I even noticed myself thinking about, okay, how can I, what should I do, with pop culture and stuff to make this appeal, to make this have more views, whatever, when I really should be thinking more about, okay, what message do I want to get across? I think we're all, to some extent, we all have these external forces that are influencing what we're doing. Yeah. So yeah.
That reminds me of a song, of course, by Molotov, the Mexican band. There was dame, 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 dame todo el power para que te demos en la madre. Gimme, 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 gimme todo el poder so I can come around to joder. Which is something I had to put in there, sorry.
Love it.
What does it mean?
It's a give me all of the power so we can fuck you up. And give me all of the power so we can come around to fuck around.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's true. Absolutely. And we're not asking for something that we don't deserve, right? Workers of the world should unite and get the thing that they are entitled to, the product of their labor. We built everything. We created everything. And we're letting a small minority of leeches take it all from us. And we can't allow that to happen anymore. It's time to fight back. It's time to take it back. It is ours. It was never theirs. They should not be telling us that we can't take back what is ours. That is inherently just theft, right? So we just want to put the leeches to work like everybody else and have a true democracy where the demos has the kratos. That's right.
The demos, the people, has the kratos, the power.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. Dang, I love that.
I also wondered, do you think in general, I know obviously you're very much for diversity of different tactics and things like that, and more unity, but you would identify more as an anarchist. So would you say that there are forms of Marxism that you think are maybe unhelpful, or that you think anarchist strategies tend to be more successful when we're organizing in general?
Yeah, that's a really tough question, because what is Marxism in 2020, right? What is socialism in 2000?
Yeah.
What even is anarchism? When I talk to Marxist-Leninists, right, the people that most people say, oh, they're the worst, they're the tankies, and I talk to them about a lot of these things, they have the exact same outlook and beliefs as almost every single thing that I am for. Even when I talk about a state, I'm like, I don't believe in a state, I'm anti-state. And they're like, well, a state is a good thing. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by a state? And they're like, oh, well, I mean, it's like a form of government, so we can actually work together, and it usually has like a top-down structure and this, that, and the other thing. But they believe in democratic centralism. I don't believe in democratic centralism, but I don't believe in it because I don't think that economically it can provide for its people as well as decentralism, right? That's an economics argument. It's an economics argument at this point, right? We're not talking about taking the capitalists and putting them up against a wall. We're not talking about any of these other things. We're, for the most part, talking about economics arguments. Most of the socialists and most of the Marxist-Leninists agree that you need to have worker cooperatives and those sorts of structures, right? So and also we're talking about a thing that happened in history, and they talk as much as we do about how they need to learn from history and not make the same mistakes as in the past. Some of them are going to totally stand China and stand Mao and all of that, right? But not talking about those people specifically. Most of the Marxist-Leninists and most of the other socialists aren't insane, right? Like they listen to all of the critique and they have a fairly reasonable understanding of it, and we can totally work together. At the very end of it all, say if we were to achieve a revolution, right, and we completely dismantle capitalism, then the real work has to be done on whether or not we go towards a democratic centralized society, or if we go to a decentralized one. And most of the Marxists that I talk to, actually every Marxist that I've talked to, doesn't have a problem with having both. Right?
I mean, yeah, could it be that some things work better when you centralize them, and some things work better when you decentralize them? There's no one size fits all type of thing. So in a way, you can ensure like the some of the key industries like water, electricity, the banks, and housing are owned by the government, by the government assuring that there's not going to be a scarcity, in those, a government that responds to the people, an accountable government, a different type of government because we say government, we imagine, a bureaucrat writing, having power over a ton of peasants, but that's not the case. A different form of government that responds and is accountable to the people. And then we can have a government. Of course we can have a government, but we can have a government that maybe does not meddle in the business of other worker co-ops or the unemployed, just protects them and gives them a good quality of life, and then leaves them alone to do and be whatever they like. It's a mixed bag. There's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And we have to apply one subject at a time, but all of the available recipes that we have. So we try the best one for every case, every instance, every department needs to be handled different, and it's okay. It's life. Life is complex.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you're saying about water being centralized and that sort of thing, I think that's just inherently, when we break it down into its basic characteristics, it's a semantic argument. Because what they're talking about when they're saying a state is an organized group of people that are made up of the proletariat that get to make decisions on voting. When I'm talking about a form of government, I'm talking about an organized group of people that are formed from the citizens that that make decisions based on voting. We're talking about virtually the same thing, right?
Yeah.
They sometimes talk about how they want to have one leader, right? But again, I talk about how leadership isn't necessarily a bad thing. I would rather not have one. I would rather have a council.
Yeah.
Right. And they have to be directly accountable and that sort of thing. So again, we're having semantic, small little arguments. And in our common day, right, where we have liberals and conservatives, or Republicans and Democrats, who are both basically neoliberals and corporate establishment Republicans, their differences are so fucking tiny. It's almost unnoticeable, right? Their differences are so small. And that's where we attack and fight each other all the time on those grounds. And that's, I think, where we're getting this problem here between us, the modern day socialists and the modern day anarchists, who inherently want the same thing. We're attacking each other on these tiny little individual grievances when really we don't need to.
Yeah.
And once the glorious revolution happens, if they want to set up their own little commune and they have one guy that they elected to the top, their own little version of whatever, right? I name your leader. That's fine. If it works out for them, then great. But if it doesn't, then there's going to be all of the rest of us that already realized that was a bad idea in the first place, that are going to be like, hey, guys, we have a better solution. Maybe you should come over here.
Yeah. Just democracy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I just loved everything both of you said, because I constantly have people ask me what is my tendency, and on every video I'm sure you both get this as well. People are like, oh, this means you're an anarchist, or this means that you're this Marxist, or whatever, depending on how they interpret what I've been saying. But in general, I know it's kind of an unsatisfactory answer to a lot of people, but I don't really know what ideology I am exactly, in terms of, am I a Marxist, am I an anarchist, etc. Just because I feel like it completely depends on the situation, and I feel like I don't know enough to specifically say one or the other. And I feel like there's important elements of both that we can take on board, etc., etc. So yeah, I really agree with a lot of what you said. Maybe once I start to learn more and understand more, maybe then I'll start saying I'm one, or maybe it'll just be more useful for me to start labeling myself as one specific thing. But generally, for now, I totally agree that in the end, we have so many more similarities than differences. And also, I know we've been talking a lot about the infighting that goes on online, but in general, it seems as if, the loudest voices are often the ones that are the worst in terms of the arguing and fighting and stuff. But in general, most leftists that I've met are really nice online, or that I've spoken to, and everyone that comes on stream, everyone's just really nice. So I feel like we do, I don't know, I guess from when you look at Twitter and when you look at what's getting the most engagement, it very much looks like we're all just these angry people fighting amongst each other. But when you actually, I don't know.
I guess the drama monarchs are like more noisy,
Yeah, exactly, and get more attention. Yeah.
We should come up with a meme. We should come up with a meme or something. Some kind of like when they ask you what tendency are you, it's like real life is not Pokemon, baby.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, in real life you can't just put a bunch of little emoticons next to your name and have everybody know what you're talking about. Like, that's not like that. And you know why you have such an easy time talking to people in situations like this, or in real life, as opposed to Twitter and Facebook? Same reason as I was talking about before. It's the commodification of likes and drama. It's that it's making money off of engagement.
Yeah,
right.
And a lot of brand culture. I am communist TM or anarchist TM. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. And that is super attractive to a lot of people. I mean, like, it's been attractive to people all throughout history. That's part of the reason why a lot of neo-Nazis start going towards that whole idea, is because the aesthetic, literally because it looks cool. Yeah. That's the only reason a lot of people go to one. So yeah, when you have this trumped up whole situation, like even the debates and the arguments and the ideas at this point, because of the way that we've commodified culture, have become a product in and of themselves. They are something that is a commodity. It is aesthetic to say, oh, well, I believe in this leftist idea. It's aesthetic, right? Whereas people don't, maybe not necessarily even agree with them, but they could say that they do. It's aesthetic to say that you're an anarchist, for example, when you hold very social democratic beliefs, right? You believe that one day, hopefully, we can have a stateless, classless, moneyless society. But what you actually propose is social democratic policies, right? Like we have a lot of that sort of thing going on. People are very, like I said, we're a bag of meat with a bunch of electrical and chemical electrons firing in our brains. Trying to place you on a graph is impossible. And we will agree with each other when we're talking in real life because we actually get to see each other and it's human. When we aren't, it's nothing more than a transaction. And that's why we're having such a problem. And it's not necessarily the one group or the other either. I just want to stress that. It's not the debate bros and it's not the woke scolds. It's the system, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. Definitely. I remember we need more humility. I remember regarding what you just said about being like little sacks of meat with electric currents running through us and electrochemical things. I remember that Star Trek The Next Generation episode where there's this silicone-based life form that grows and starts talking to Picard and saying like, ugly bags of mostly water.
Yeah, I remember that.
We're ugly bags of mostly water, so fuck that shit. Let's be more humble.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. No.
Yeah. We need to have humility to say that we don't know, we don't have all the answers. We don't necessarily know that our way is the right way. We need to have humility also to recognize that, I don't know, we might have had some luck or privilege or whatever that's helped us come over to the left, whereas other people might not have had that. And so, yeah, I definitely think humility is such an important one. And I think that's also, I guess we can talk a little bit about also how to convince people in terms of praxis, in terms of talking to people in like on a one-to-one basis. I don't know if you guys have had a lot of success with different strategies of how to do that, but I generally find actually listening and asking questions and then kind of posing questions to kind of make them question themselves. I mean, when I'm talking to someone who's right-wing, for example, it's really helpful, and having that kind of humility to be open. I mean, obviously it depends on the situation. If someone's saying really problematic stuff, then obviously it's going to be hard to a lot of the time to, you know, sit and listen. And I'm not saying everyone should have to do that work, but definitely in general, I feel like coming towards it with that kind of humility can be really, really beneficial. And just questioning rather than trying to, as soon as you start trying to debunk or prove them wrong, I feel like it pushes them further away rather than actually being interested to listen to what you're saying. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think in terms of practical strategies in terms of talking to people, that kind of practice? I mean, I haven't had much success in terms of when I've been on the street and stuff and talking to people. I'm not very good at that. Maybe you both are better at that.
I would direct you to the movie They Live, when the protagonist gets the glasses on and suddenly he wants to go to his friend and tell him to put the glasses on, and the friend they end up fighting because he doesn't want to put the glasses on, right?
Oh man, that is such a good analogy. It's like that's exactly like what most interactions are sometimes. You just want to grab somebody by the shoulders and shake them and be like, please just wake up. Just listen.
I mean, that's that late 20th century Battleship Potemkin. That's They Live.
But no, Kathrin, you're 100% spot on. As far as I'm concerned, that's exactly what you have to do. Is what I always try to do whenever you get into a conversation with somebody is start asking them what they believe and why, because a lot of people haven't sat down and thought those things through themselves, and just giving them the opportunity to suss that out and to actually explore, well, what exactly is racism? What is race? Why do I believe that things should be based on this thing and not that thing? Like actually analyzing those, because so many people just take so many just for granted, right? We hear all of these wives' tales, or we exist in capitalist realism or whatever it is. So we just believe that one way of looking at things is true until we actually hear an alternative position. But it isn't necessarily that we hear it. It's that we come to it ourselves, right? And that's the whole point about asking people those questions and asking leading questions, not misleading questions, but leading questions. Why do you believe that race is important to your culture? Why do you believe that you need to segregate? Why do you believe this? Why do you believe that? And actually exploring those into depth and finding out the true reasons behind it. Because a lot of the time, it's based off of nothing. It's based off of hearsay. It's based off of wild, like non-scientific stuff. And once that other person is able to actually come to that conclusion themselves, then it's just an avalanche from there. They're just going to start rolling down that hill, collecting more and more snow. They're going to be on that path. I was actually talking to an eco-fascist. I've been talking to him for a couple of weeks now, and he's just a young kid, right? He's just a young kid. He reminds me a little bit of me when I was growing up, where he's clearly got some issues. He's angry. He wants to fix the world. He's an environmentalist, wants to change everything, but he doesn't have a framework on how he can do that, right? He's mad and he wants to direct all of his anger towards the Jews or to a different race or whatever, or immigrants, as though that's going to somehow help things, or creating an ethno state is going to make things better. And it wasn't until we actually started talking and I asked him questions like, what do you even think race is? Or what was it the other day that I asked him, and he completely fell off his rocking chair, and he stopped talking to me for about 45 minutes. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I said something along the lines of, he said that everybody should have their own ethno state, right? Because I said to him that Mediterranean people and Slavs were never considered white people. They were considered a different thing, and that kind of threw him for a loop. So he comes back to me a couple of days later. He says, okay, I've thought about what you said, and you know what? They should deserve their own ethno state too. And I said, okay, how do you determine that they should go to this place or the other place? And he says, well, I'm sure that you could do a test, a blood test, right? And I said, okay, well, how much blood has to be towards one race than the other? And he's like, well, you couldn't do 100% because that'd probably be impossible. So about 70 to 80%. So I said, okay, perfect. Now, what if somebody has a grandparent that was black, like a white person has a grandparent that was black, therefore their skin color is totally black, but they reach the 70 or 80% number that they need for their blood to be ethnically German. Then what? And he stopped talking because he had no answer to that, because he didn't think about it that deeply, right? And now and now that opens up that it's like planting seeds, right? It opens up your ideas and your mentality to, hey, maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe I need to think about this in a different way. And it's all about asking those questions, man. It's all about that.
Yeah, and don't never have a problem with juice. Like you can make a if you like apple juice, it's nice. Yeah. If you like orange juice, it's also thicker and it's really nice. Pineapple, it's a little bit too sweet for my taste, but if that's your taste, go for it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of juice. Yeah. I'm a very big.
Sorry about the dad joke, but I had to let it out.
I'm anti-acidic though.
Yeah.
No orange juice. No orange juice.
Yeah, it can be rough on your stomach if you take it with an empty belly. So
yeah, that's right.
Just be careful and enjoy. It's the next best thing after an actual whole piece of fruit. 5-0.
Uh-oh.
They're gone. They're not
okay,
after this time.
I don't know if there's anything. I don't know if there's anything you both want to add, or if we want to wrap it up, or I feel like we could talk about this stuff all day about real life practice and organization. But Aaron, you've inspired me so much. I love how you articulate things, and you're so passionate in how you say things. And I don't know, I feel really inspired now to go and like knock on my neighbor's door and I don't know, try and get organized somehow.
You just made me so happy. You have no idea. That is such a nice thing for you to say. Knock on your neighbor's door, but don't do it alone. Get out there with your friends, your family. Get out there and you can make a difference. You will. Oh my God, I feel so happy that I was able to talk to you guys today. So much fun talking about this sort of thing. And yeah, you're right. We could talk for hours and hours and hours about this sort of thing. And I want to come back and talk about it again sometime. So anytime you guys want to have me on, definitely send out the invite.
Oh, you're more than welcome. You rock, brother. You're fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Shit, we've been on for almost 2 hours. Time flies.
I know.
I didn't even notice. Fuck. Okay, let's wrap it up. Good people, thank you for coming to the show. Aaron, you have some final words? You want to say something in particular?
Just that, like I said before, politics isn't a spectator sport. Get out there, get active, get involved. You can do it. Be the change you want to see in the world. We can do it together.
Yes.
And definitely, if you're a fan of mine and you haven't subscribed to these two individuals yet, do that. What are you waiting for? Please go and do that. And just a big thank you for having me on, because I really appreciate the talk.
Thank you for being with us. It's been a wonderful channel. We were looking forward to it. By the way, Paul sends his love. He had some personal issues to attend. Something nice, but he had to be there, so he couldn't be. But probably next time he'll be here with us. But he sends us his love to you, like a lot of it.
That's awesome. And I send my love back, big time.
Yes. Okay, good people. Thank you for coming to the show. Kathrin,
Thank you so much, Aaron.
You want to
Thank
add
you,
something?
everyone. No,
Nope.
other than go subscribe to Re-Education now if you haven't already.
Right on. Thank you. I'm such a doofus. I just forget to do the right things. I'm random shit. Okay, good people. Thank you for coming to the show. Amazing people in the chat. Mel said to remind every one of us to watch this documentary called The Battle of Chile, which is about the Chilean protests, which are an example to all of us. So let's do that. Probably hosting a watch party tomorrow at this same time right now. It's about 10 p.m. here, whichever that time in your time zone is. I'm going to do a watch party on Twitch tomorrow, hopefully, probably. Good people, have a great one. Muacas, much kisses and hugs to everybody, because the left is not about crazy people, but loving people. So there you go. Have fun.
Yeah.
Bye.